Ever since I can remember, music has been an integral part of my life. I was born in Chicago and into a family of music lovers. My dad was a rock and roller, turning my brother and me onto classic rock like the Beatles, CCR, Doors, the Monkees, Pink Floyd, the Rolling Stones, as well as introducing us to visual artists like Salvador Dali, Pablo Picasso, René Magritte, and Bruce Lee movies. My mom loved Julio Iglesias and filled our home with the melodramatic stylings of other balladeros such as José José, Juan Gabriel, Napoleon, and more. My brother and best friend Jorge became my cultural soundboard. We shared music, films, weird local TV shows, and absorbed the zeitgeist of the times, the mid-'80s. In other words, we became obsessed with art and culture of all types. Whether it was by design or accident, we became the coolest kids on the block. If you wanted to see or hear something you never heard before, you had to come over to the Ledezmas. Flash forward to 1987, and the Ledezmas relocated to the northwest suburbs of Wheeling, Illinois, miles away from the low rumble of the city. Being in Chicano in the suburbs was a hard adjustment, but in a short span of a year and a half, I landed a part-time job at one of the two cool record stores in town called Hip Cat Records. And I discovered punk rock and became friends with an up-and-coming band called Toe Jam, who would later morph into Cap and Jazz, and I learned how to play drums on my own, which inspired me to start my own bands. Eventually, I moved back to Chicago in my early 20s. While I was making the scene by going to shows and connecting with other musicians along the way, I managed to record and perform with groups such as V Reverse, The Vindictives, Mid-States, Defender, and many others. I also spent 20 plus years working in the food industry, from slinging seafood for a major Fortune 500 company to working at a female-owned catering company. From bankers to rock stars, I fed and connected with wide spectrums of humanity, and I learned how to cook. Today, I continue to play drums with groups such as Aya, Geezer Sr., The Arthur Lane, and Infotapes. I've also tapped into my eclectic and esoteric musical knowledge and my love of the conversation by hosting the Ghost and Worm Show with Adam Scott for Wholesome Radio, and co-host and founder of Let's Make a Show with Brian and Angel on YouTube. This is my life, connecting with family and friends through music for the past 30 years. I'm Angel Ledezma, and this is As We Go Along. Welcome to As We Go Along with Angel. I'm really excited to invite not only an old friend, but my English teacher from high school, Mr. Mark Maxwell. He's waiting outside right now. Let's bring him out. There he is. Sorry to keep you waiting.
That's okay. How are you? Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks. When Mark Maxwell began his teaching career at Wheeling High School in 1989, he didn't have an idea of the volcano of creativity that was about to erupt. Wheeling High in the 90s was the birthplace of the creative angst that spawned professional dancers, brilliant visual artists, and bands such as Cap and Jazz, Braid, Defender, American football, and more. Mark was our guiding light, encouraging us along the way, but allowing us the space to get on with it. He was and is our mentor, and now as adults, friends. My time as his student lasted a year, but inspired me and has left a lasting impression. While music is my main passion, Mark Maxwell turned me on to the art of writing and the power of the written word. And in joining us for this is my cousin Alexis.
Hey, Alexis, how are you?
How you doing?
Good to see you, man. Oh, yeah.
I was excited to invite Mark Maxwell to our home to help make a shrimp and field roast sausage gumbo in honor of National Gumbo Day. This is the first time that I've spent any time with him as an adult. I was a little nervous, but his kind personality melted that all away. And he didn't come empty-handed, bringing some tasty wild-caught shrimp, fixings for the gumbo like parsley and lime, and made us all virgin mojitos. Now let's get into it with me, Mark Maxwell, Athena, Mochi, Alexis, Michael, and Mittens, as we all go along with some gumbo. Enjoy.
T-shirt, I've got a t-shirt. It don't have anything on it, don't need anything on it. Says I went to work till I could not work no more. T-shirt, you got a t-shirt. T-shirt, I've got a t-shirt.
And then, did you grow up here in In Illinois or?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Chicago, Northwest Side, around Harlem and Irving, around the Foster area.
Yeah.
And when I was going into 8th grade, my parents decided to try and save their marriage by moving to the suburbs. And that didn't work out so well. And we ended up in Glenview. So I had to go to high school at Glenbrook South. I was supposed to go to Taft.
Okay.
But I went to Glenbrook South, and I was completely fish out of water. All these preppy kids wearing pink polos and, the penny loafers and all that. And I walk in my ripped jeans and my flannel shirt and looking like, where'd that come from? So it was pretty difficult experience the first couple of years, but I made a couple of really good friends. Junior and senior year were better because I got a job at Jewel.
Nice.
And I was working hard and I had friends there and we'd hang out after work and, do stuff you're not supposed to do, but it does. And it turned out okay, but I didn't like Glenview much.
Right.
And then my parents, when they split, they ended up out in the northwest suburbs. My dad went to Mount Prospect, and my mom went to Arlington Heights. And then I was off to college, and when I came back, I didn't really have anywhere to go that I could call home,
Right.
So I decided to get married and move out to Marengo.
Where's Marengo?
It's about 20 minutes, 30 minutes shy of Rockford, off of 90.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's way out there.
Wow.
One morning, we had a huge snowstorm overnight, and I got up one morning, I was living in Marengo, and I had to be at Wheeling we started school at 7:25 in those days. And I knew that it was going to take me a long time, and the plows hadn't come yet. And so I got up at like 4, dug my car out, drove to Wheeling. It took me an hour and a half, but there was nobody else on the road except me. I'm literally driving through snowdrifts along Highway 20. I get to school, and there's no cars there. And I'm like, what's going on? I go inside, and they called a snow day, but nobody called me.
Oh,
Mommy! Now it's medication time for me! Tick tock! It's medication time! Pop! It's medication time! Now it's celebration time! Now it's medication time! I'm so glad that it's finally medication time! And I can't believe that I'm into medication time! Give it up, Ed! Give me more! 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 More! Fund me up! 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 Give me more! Fucker!
and then when did you start in Wheeling?
89.
Okay. There's that year again. 1989 has been like a kind of a reoccurring year that comes up.
Really? Why?
Well, for me, I believe in, everyone always says we all have a coming of age. I feel like we have multiple coming of ages.
Yeah.
And that one in particular hit me because it was like, and we talked about this, like Berlin Wall comes down, communism falls. It was just like a lot of things were happening so quickly. And we're like, and then I just kind of picked up on it. I'm like, okay, like I think the 90s are going to be interesting. I remember saying that out loud. Like, I think 1990s the 90s are going to be really, really interesting. I don't know why, but.
They definitely were interesting at Wheeling.
Oh yeah. And we can talk more about it later, but I'm just curious how you started to kind of pick up on what was happening amongst us.
I can't say that I fully appreciated it in the time that it was happening because those were my first years of teaching. That's all I knew. So I just kind of thought, this is the way it is.
Right.
And then as time went by, I started to realize, no, there's something special happening here. This is not normal.
Yeah.
And by the time you guys came through, I would say your class and the class after, I was kind of like, I was onto it.
Yeah.
And then when I left Wheeling and went to Meadows, don't get me wrong, I love Meadows. I love the kids at Meadows. I love my colleagues. I love the schedule there. It's a great place. It was probably the best thing I could have done for my career. I think it extended my career quite a lot. But there was no creative angst churning in the place at all. It wasn't the same at all. They're sweet kids,
Right.
but they just didn't have that fire,
Right.
to create.
Yeah. Because I mean, and I'm just curious, how long was the creative juices still flowing after we all left, or did it kind of like?
It ebbed and flowed a little bit, but I have to say that what you guys did inspired another probably till 2001.
Okay.
I would say it was still churning pretty good.
Right.
And then after that, it started to fade out a little bit.
Okay.
That's post 9/11. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it's a coincidence maybe. But yeah, that's when it started to kind of fade. But up until that point, there were a lot of kids who wanted to be like the '93 class. You know, trying to recreate the circus from that year, and trying to start bands and make crazy art and all that kind of stuff. And there was a group in 2000 especially that was a lot like the 93, 94 groups,
Sure.
They were definitely churning with the creative angst, that's for sure.
Good way of putting it, yeah. We were definitely angsty, that's for sure. But it was like,
Yeah, but you guys had a sense of humor.
we definitely did. We were definitely, yeah, that was the thing, like, obviously being Gen Xers, we had to grow up a little faster than some of us did, and then, yeah, I think, seeing all the stuff that was happening, we're like, we just made fun of a lot of things.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like I was kind of, like I definitely was smart, but at the same time never like being rude about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We're so, I felt like we were, at least I was respectful with the elders.
Oh God, yeah, you guys were all respectful until you got to know me and you realized you didn't have to be.
Well.
And then people were giving me shit left and right.
Now it's time to scream and shout. Now it's time to come unwound. My favorite time is coming now. Now it's medication time. For me. For me. Now it's medication time for me. Tick tock. It's medication time. Pop, pop. It's medication time. Now it's celebration time. Now it's medication time. I'm so glad that it's finally medication time. And I can't believe I'm into medication time. God damn it! Make it burn, 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 burn. Hit me hard, 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 you motherfucker, motherfucker! Fuck me up, fuck me up, fuck me up, fuck me up, you poodle butt fucker! Give me more, 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 give me just one more!
After much patience with the roux and everything, we have this beautiful gumbo. See if I can point it right there. Homemade with shrimp.
Dog excited.
Even got Mochi excited. I'm here with my friend Mark Maxwell, and we're about to dig in.
Looks fantastic.
Thank you. And then what kind of bread is that again?
Olive and something else, but I forgot.
Okay. Ooh.
Good, huh?
I mean, usually I like to do everything kind of quickly, but this was kind of, we had a really good conversation and just stirring up that roux for almost an hour.
Was it really?
Yeah. Because I set the alarm for like 40 minutes and then then you just kept stirring for the entire.
Good, huh?
That's really good. Let's see with the bread. Oh, this is very tasty. All right.
So what do you want to talk about?
Well, one of the things I always ask a lot of my guests is, what are your memories of meeting me? But I don't know if you have any memories of meeting me.
My oldest vivid memory of you is you coming into my classroom at the end of the day after school was over. People were kind of milling about and leaving. And you'd come in, I'm not sure if you were still there, if you had graduated already. I think you were a senior at the time, but you weren't in my class. And you just came in with some some news that was really important to you, and it was about music, and you wanted to share it. I don't remember what it was now, but it was some piece of news that you wanted to share, and you were really excited. And I remember thinking, I like this kid. Look at that enthusiasm. Look at that passion. Man, what if they were all like that?
That sounds about like me. Yeah. One memory I definitely have, and I always tell people, and I was telling Athena recently about this, is I think it was because I always enjoyed your class, and I remember the one day that you weren't there. I was like, where's Mr. Maxwell? And I saw you the next day. I'm like, are you okay? Is everything all right? He's like, yeah. And then you kind of like did one of these where you're like, I went to go see Neil Young the night before Chicago because I knew that he was playing. And I was like, oh yeah, that show. And he's like, yeah, I called the next day. I was like, cool.
That sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
Is it funny? I had to look around to see if anybody was listening, but that's the kind of environment it was, you know?
Mm-hmm. I mean, so I guess, yeah. So talking about Wheeling, so I think I asked you earlier, but so obviously Wheeling had a lot of talent there. Mm-hmm. When did you start to pick up, like, hey, there's something beyond just, you know?
I knew for sure in '93 that I was probably caught up in something that was never going to happen again in my career. That isn't entirely true, but there were, 7 or 8, 9, 10 kids in that group who were already. My job was just to get out of their way, basically. Encourage them, support them, make sure I gave them space to do what they needed to do, but then stay the hell out of the way because they were already so gifted, so talented, so creative, so funny, and dark at the same time. And in so many different areas, dance, visual. So you had Casey in dance, you had Sean in visual arts, you had you guys in music. It was just this great mix, but you all fed off of each other, you know?
Yeah.
And then in the years that came after that, I became even more aware of how special that group was because, like I was telling you earlier, there's so many people, so many groups of kids who came along, '94 through 2000, who were trying to be you guys, trying to imitate you guys, trying to do what you had done, in their own way. They put their own spin on it, but they were trying to follow a formula that they invented for themselves somehow, so they could be more like those groups, those early '90s groups, And it was kind of cool because, first of all, I recognized that it was imitation, but I didn't, get in the way of it because that's how you grow, right? You imitate, you play your cover songs first,
Yeah.
Artists study other artists and try to master,
Right.
forgeries and stuff like that before they do their own thing. It's not an uncommon thing. So I just let it happen, and it was fun to watch it unfold because they did do their own thing with it, and it made me see that for those 7 or 8 years at that school, once that period was over, something really weird was happening.
Yeah.
And we called it lightning in a bottle a bunch of times, but that's what it felt like because when looking back on it, after 2000, when I went to Meadows, and I didn't see that sort of creative angst or energy amongst my students anymore, that's when I was really like, oh my God, I wish I could go back there and do that again. Because I don't know if I fully appreciated it at the time, I think, I don't know, let me ask you, so why? Why did that happen and why did it happen then?
I mean, there's a number of reasons, right?
And why Wheeling?
Well, for me, I was in Wheeling. I didn't really have a choice because my parents moved us there, mostly because my mom's work was closer.
From Rogers Park?
From Rogers Park. And of course, I told you about my younger brother, Mauricio, so there's a lot more resources for him up here. For me, I'm like, where's the city? Where's the noise? Where's the hustle and bustle? So that was a bit of an adjustment, and I think at that point I'm like, okay, well, I can either be a jock or get into drugs, which I didn't want to do any of that, but I was really into music, and yeah, hearing Black Flag, hearing punk rock in the burbs. I think being in the suburbs kind of helped me to like figure out what should I be doing with my time, because I didn't really feel like I had any kind of ambition. Everyone else was like figuring out, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a this or that, and I had no idea what I wanted to be. I know I liked music, I love culture, reading, but there's really no money in that. So, but then once I heard punk rock and realized, hey, I can do that. And then,
what was the first punk rock you heard? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, Sex Pistols. But the group that really did it for me was Black Flag, and in particular the Decline of Western Civilization movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, but it featured. They had many different singers, obviously, but they had one singer, Ron Reyes, who was Puerto Rican, but he could have easily been one of my relatives or one of my, like a cousin. Because I don't know if you remember that was the era of like hair metal. So there was a lot of that.
Oh yeah.
And it was one of the, even hair metal, like I can't relate to any of these people. Like, I'm not tall, I'm not blonde, I don't have long hair. But then I saw this guy.
You don't want to make your head go like this all the time?
I mean, I try to, trying to grow my hair. Well, nowadays it's, let me let it out. Now I can do that.
There you go.
But back then I was trying to grow my hair and it was just looking really bad. And then, but anyway, yeah, I was like, I just couldn't get into metal. And then, but hearing, Black Flag, hearing Dead Kennedys, and be like, oh, I can do this. And then, of course, soon after I found out about these groups is when I first met the Kinsellas and got to know their whole scene. And, and we're all about the same age. So we're like, wow, these are my peers. So, but as far as the why, I mean, I think we definitely had to grow up a lot during the 80s, even as, even when we were like 10 or 11 or whatever. There was, I think I mentioned this a while back, like, we grew up in the era of like, at some point, we're all going to die in a nuclear holocaust. AIDS was happening, like crack was happening. So it was like, we were already getting a lot of fear kind of drilled into us, and that kind of made us grow up a little bit faster, kind of seeing even more dangers at, most kids don't see that much danger until much later, but we were. And so I think, I don't know, maybe mentally it just kind of like shifted us into this thing of like, well, since we can't have sex and drugs are just no good, so what do we have? We have our youth, we have passion, we have, just enthusiasm, I guess. So, and somehow that kind of collided with what was happening out in the Pacific Northwest, what was happening, it was like, I just feel like it was just like a perfect storm of like, kids who already kind of went through the ringer of the 80s to now like, this is our time to finally, make something happen. Of all the places I could have picked or that my parents had picked for us to live, happened to be Wheeling.
Yeah.
Although it was
you're scarred for life.
Yeah. I mean, I will say it was definitely a rough adjustment in the beginning because of being Mexican American. We were only like a handful of Mexican families in Wheeling proper. So that was kind of like, that was another thing but then after a while that just, we got used to it, or we were able to adjust pretty well. But.
So you mentioned the Kinsellas a couple of times. So I always come back to like, who were the personalities involved when this happened, and how did they influence each other? So what role? We just start. Don't lump them together because they're so different. But let's just start with Tim. What role do you think Tim had in inspiring people around him, or did he not have that effect?
He had that effect. I mean, he was definitely a ringleader. He was definitely right off the bat. What I picked up from Tim was that he was obviously very. He had a good eye for what was happening. So like he could definitely pick out any kind of like cool thing that maybe not a lot of people know about. So he was always the first one to like he would be the first one to get like a lot of records that hadn't been out yet or whatever. So he had an in with that, but he was also very savvy. Like, and I think he, like I said earlier, he had when I first met him, and he's we talked for a little bit, and he saw me. He's like, do you want to come check out my band?
Yeah,
we practice every Friday, and I was like, yeah, I'm there. Like, like, oh wow, somebody that's my age that's in a band, or they have a space. So I think he knew who was like, who was cool, who had enough sense or brains to like, to hang out. So
what influence did he have on other artists in that group, if any?
I think mostly the influence of just being a front person, but also one thing that he definitely was really good about was the how do you call it, like the nuts and bolts of it, because it's one thing like to have a band and practice, but it's another to be like, we got to get shows, we got to figure out where to record, where to press our records. So he had a lot of help from other people outside, but he was really good about that. He was super organized. I remember, I think it was when that first Captain Jazz 7-inch came out, and he was mailing out a bunch of lyrics to the Library of Congress so you can get it copyrighted. I was like, whoa, that's
way ahead of the game.
For junior in high school, I mean, that's like, thinking far ahead. So, but yeah, I mean, for me, it was just like the idea of this guy was just, he already had a band when he was like, early on, or when he was touring. So it was like,
so there was a kind of like, well, he's doing it.
Yeah.
Just like with your attraction to punk rock. Well, you saw that, you said, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost like, Sex Pistols and Black Flag gave you permission to be a musician.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, it sounds like, made you realize what was involved in the behind the scenes business of it.
Yeah.
But also made you feel like, if he could do it, I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I think that was the big push when I saw Tim doing it, saw those guys doing it. I'm like, they're not as good as me, but they're doing it, and I can do that too. So I think that was kind of like, I think seeing that definitely made us sort of like, okay, well, now we can do it.
Yeah.
So, and
that was the sense that I got from the whole group, was like, there was always this belief that, why not me? I could do that. Yeah. And I don't know where it came from initially, whether, Tim was the spark or Tim was just part of that or whatever. But I saw that in all you guys. You didn't see limitations. You were passionate about your art, and you're like, this is what I got to do because this is who I am. That's the way it is. And I can do it. I know I can do it.
And how did you? I mean, how were you able to maneuver through that? Seeing that kind of, you just kind of let us do our thing, or were you like?
Yeah, well, it was different in creative writing because that sort of confidence didn't come out in the writing so much.
True that, yeah.
Even when it was deserved, they should have been more confident. They were very self-critical as writers. Tim had more confidence than most, but in some ways, I think it was sort of a false confidence. He was trying to hide the fact that he was really insecure about it.
Oh wow!
And I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah, no. In the writing class, everybody was sort of equal. There was no I can do anything sort of attitude about it. It was like, gosh, I don't know if I can do this,
Yeah.
And then I had to so my job was to boost everybody up and and kind of make them see that the other things they were doing were really no different than this.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you can do this.
Right.
Just like, if he can do that, I can do it. That kind of thing. And then they started to realize that they could do it, and then it just took off, and I got the hell out of the way.
Right.
Although I will say Tim came in pretty much from day one not needing much help.
Oh, yeah.
And I did totally just get out of his way.
Yeah.
What about Mike?
Mike was for me, he was a very unassuming guy.
Yeah.
Very easygoing. Just like, and when I would come over there, because he wasn't even playing with them, but he was just hanging out.
Permanently?
Oh yeah. And but it wasn't until Cap and Jazz started, and then all of a sudden, like, where did this guy come from?
Yeah.
Like Kinsella, he just kind of like he was very, like I said, he was very on the sideline. Didn't really brag about it. But during that time, he was already like playing guitar. He was already playing drums. So for me, he just seemed like he was like mad genius. Like the guy could pick up any instrument, play it, and very humble too. So
he was really self-critical about his writing. But it's funny because he said to me recently that he always saw Tim as the poet and the emotional one and all that, and didn't think he was like that. And then he said that in the writing class, that's where he discovered, I can do this too. It's the same theme, right? Like, I don't think I'm like him, but I'm gonna try. And then, look, I can do it.
Right.
And there was just like everybody was, those synapses were firing in everybody at the same time. The confidence to try.
Yeah.
I also think there was I think I was telling Athena this earlier. I feel like there was a kind of a synergy going on throughout the art departments. All the fine arts.
Oh yeah.
So we had Kapheim and Brosh in visual art, and talk about two characters.
Yeah.
They were just larger than life, professorial, scary, smart as hell, very talented artists. Always did art with the kids, so the kids were seeing them work, and again, there's that model in front of them. They go, well, maybe I could do that, And you had Brian, what's his name? Brian something, as band director. He had the jazz band.
Oh, Logan,
yeah, Brian Logan. And that jazz band kicked ass. And because he was really passionate, he was a musician, and he was just like Brosh and Kapheim. They were in their craft. They weren't just teaching it; they were living it and doing it. And so their passion came through. And then you had Diane Rollinson in dance. Remember her?
Yeah.
Oh my God, she talked about passion. I mean, I couldn't even. She would talk to me, and I would get like so nervous just listening to her talk because she talked so fast that I'd be like, I have to go now.
Yeah.
But brilliant. The kids worked their asses off for her. And you had theater. We had good theater too. Some really kind of different kinds of theater. It wasn't the traditional shows that high schools always do.
Oh yeah, like their Grease or yeah.
And then we had those I don't know if you remember the menagerie or that stuff. So that was like I was trying to get them to blend all these things that they did together. So you want to bring dance in, bring your cello in, bring this in, bring that. Let's bring poetry to life. And because they had so much influence from all those people, making them believe they could do it, and also just teaching them how to think creatively, which they didn't need a lot of help with that, but then it all came together, and then it came together in the magazine too as a result, because that was visual and literary. And they were such rebels, like they didn't want to make a magazine. They thought it was a stupid school thing, but they couldn't help themselves, because they were artists and they were writers by that point, and then so they just, all right, we'll do it, But it was almost like they were begrudgingly, but they were having fun at the same time.
Sure.
And they kind of took that attitude into the making of the magazine. So there was this sort of fuck you quality to that issue, that 93 issue, but a really sweet kind of gentle fuck you,
right?
with a wink and a nod, And then they won, a bunch of awards, a bunch of national awards for that magazine. And again, it was sort of that, oh my God, look what we did. Yeah. We can do this,
Yeah.
But that, like you say, the perfect storm of the 80s, how it shaped you guys, the environment of the suburbs, things starting to trickle down to the suburbs, trickle out to the suburbs, and then the people involved, you guys individually influencing each other, but then also the professionals around you who were actually artists themselves.
Yeah.
And
which you just made me realize that we were surrounded by like rock star
Yeah.
teachers, even though at the time, it was like, it just felt very like, almost felt like everything was just kind of like where it needed to be. It was,
Right. Because you didn't know any better.
Yeah. But then realizing like, obviously you as a writer as well. I mean,
Yeah, I was in the middle. I was getting a master's in fine arts, master's of fine arts in fiction writing during that time, and right after that, I got my novel published.
Right.
So people, that was again sort of like this legendary thing that trickles down. Yeah, this clown, my teacher can do that. Maybe I could do that too.
Sure, yeah. And did you feel like you had like when you were wheeling? I mean, now we can talk about this now, but I mean, did you feel like you had to fight for like trying to break through that kind of,
Yeah, as you mentioned, it was a much older staff.
Mm-hmm.
I was the youngest person in the English department for 10 years. And I watched all these old, they were all like Vietnam kids who decided to go to teacher school or go teach so they would have to go to Vietnam. And
Mr. Hayes.
Yeah. And then the women around the same age, so they were all in their 50s when I got there. And they were pretty traditional and pretty uptight. And they weren't so crazy about me. They humored me, but they were not comfortable with what I was doing. They thought it was too frivolous. So I got some grief, but luckily my division head was really supportive. He loved what I was doing, and I really respected him. And he got the respect of everybody in the department basically because he was very well liked all the way around. So he kind of kept people off my back.
Okay.
Like just one example, this is kind of a silly example, but when I first started teaching there, I had one earring in this ear.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
And I had not worn it to my interview. Took it out in the interview. So first day of school, before kids come, we're doing meetings and stuff. And I go into the principal's conference room because we're going to have all these new teachers be introduced to the principal. And I think, well, shit, I don't know, because I've heard stories about this guy. He was a Navy guy, and he was like really,
just hardcore.
Yeah, batten down the hatches, but also a little crazy to the point where the staff would basically make fun of him a lot. Like Tantilla once set up a pew in the hallway, a little shrine to Dr. Schreiner, or Dr. whatever his name was, because he was retiring that year.
Okay.
So it was like a picture of him like with candles and a pew, so like he was dead.
Nice.
Anyway, so I'm like, I heard this guy was an asshole, and my coordinating teacher when I was a student teacher told me to stay away from him because he knew me, So I thought, I look at the table, he wasn't in the room yet. I was trying to figure out where to sit, like be the farthest away from him, right? So I'm assuming he's going to sit down at that end because it looks like a captain's chair, So I sit all the way at this end, right? He walks in, slams the door, sits down right next to me. He looks up at me and he says, "Did you look like that when I hired you?" In front of all these people in the room.
You're like,
I said more or less.
Nice. Good answer.
So he was really pissed off. He didn't want any male teachers wearing earrings. This is, a long time ago. So
yeah.
So my boss, because he was ever supportive, I hadn't even been there a week yet.
Okay.
And they had their first division head meeting or administrative team meeting. And he goes in early and he has one of the female administrators bring in a basket of clip-on earrings. She passes the basket around. Every guy in the room puts a clip-on earring. All the male administrators. My boss got them to do this. They didn't even know who the hell I was. They're all sitting around the table wearing earrings, and the principal walks in, and they just sit there staring at him. And he looks up and says, "What the hell are you doing? What's going on here? That's not funny. That's not funny at all." But that was the end of it. Never heard a word about it after that.
There you go.
So that was the kind of support I got from day one from that guy. So whenever I felt like I was being challenged for being too frivolous or whatever, he would have my back. Right. And I knew that, so I felt free to do whatever the hell I wanted. And then once I got tenure, I wouldn't even.
They couldn't touch you. Yeah.
So I knew what I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to build a creative writing program that. So I had student taught at Rolling Meadows, and the guy there had a really good program. He had like 4 sections of the class, and they were always winning awards, for local and national awards for their writing. And I worked with him as a student teacher. And I wanted Wheeling to be like that because Wheeling had 2 or 3 sections, but they never submitted to contests. They never won anything. Their magazine sucked. And I wanted to make it more like Inclusive Meadows. So that was my goal. And I knew how to build that. I thought I knew how to build that. Usually the magazine is kind of like a magnet.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. And we ended up with 9 sections of the class at one point. And I was teaching all of them myself. Can you imagine how much grading that was? And you know, the magazine turned into something that kids actually read instead of throwing in the trash. And there was buzz, and I was always getting in trouble for stuff that I was publishing, but that was part of the reason why the kids liked it, you know. And
Sure, yeah.
and again, when we had a new principal, and she had said in her interview that she'd be willing to institute prior review if somebody published something inappropriate. And that 93 issue had things that were, there was a poem about rape, there was a poem about, it was all kinds of stuff that, you know, I got in trouble for, including the word sucks on the cover.
Remember that was a big thing, the word...
And it really sucks to be the only mummy at your school. I got in trouble for that.
Wow.
So my boss said, I'll tell you what, Mark, all these people who are pissed off, we're going to invite them to an after-school meeting. You, your editors, me, the principal, and whoever wants to come to complain and bitch about it. He said, they're not going to show up. This will shut them up. So one person came. She bitched about the stuff I just told you about, how inappropriate it was. I didn't say a word to let the kids do the defending. They were like, oh, I must have do this about it. And they were really articulate, really smart, really passionate. And she just shut up and walked out of the room. And that was the end of it. But again, it was my boss who gave me that kind of support. You know, that's hard to find.
Yeah,
and I was a young kid. I could have easily just said, this is too much trouble. I don't want to be bothered with this.
Right. The one thing that as we go along, a big thing is just like connections, friendships. But one of the things I always ask people is like, what are the things, the qualities in for all the friends that you've had over the years? What are the main Wait, what's the question, babe?
What are the ingredients to long-lasting friendship?
What are the ingredients to a long-lasting friendship for you?
Wow. Well, I have a large, not large, but like 7 or 8 guys that I've been friends with forever. One guy I've known since I was 7 years old, a couple since I was 13, the rest since I was 14, one from after college, a couple from college, you know. But these are guys I've known for decades. And I think what they share in terms of you mean like their friendship qualities specifically?
Yeah. I guess what makes you keep coming back? What makes you guys keep coming back to each other?
Well, it's some of those same things that drew me to you guys. Is creative spirit, some rebellious energy, some loyalty. I think that's important. So I feel safe with them, you know. I feel like I could say or do anything, and they would give me shit about it, but they would totally not judge me for it ever. There's no judgment either way, you know, ever. Those are the big ones, I guess. And I think, like I was saying earlier tonight, that one of the things that I found most surprising about teaching was that I would become friends with my students. Right. It never even occurred to me. I thought they graduate, they go away, you never see them again. I was prepared to deal with that, you know? Yeah. And then they started coming back. And they were like, holy shit, this is kind of cool. And then as you guys got older and were in your 20s, and you know, you were not kids anymore, and I was only 10 years older than you, give or take, started hanging out with people a little bit, you know, here and there. And I mean, some of my closest friends now are former students, you know, like I Mike and Tim I'm close with. Mike more now than Tim, but used to be Tim more than Mike. And like Casey and Gabi and Trish, I've become really close with. just in the last 5 years or so, because we started, well, it really kind of happened during COVID, actually. We started hanging out outside at Casey's backyard at dead of winter even, just drinking and talking and hanging out. Because none of us had anything to do, and, and they have the same qualities, really. It's all the same stuff. The loyalty, the lack of judgment, and then that creative rebellious spirit,
Yeah, no, those are good qualities. I mean, that's like, because I guess the loyalty, which is very short supply. Who can you be loyal to these days? So it's, and then just having some kind of spirit to kind of, I guess,
it feeds off of you.
Yeah,
you feed off of it. Yeah.
Because I always feel like, especially with good friends or people that get you excited, it's like they're either like trying to push you to be the best person that you can be, or be as creative as you can be. Yeah.
I also find that I like to be around people who are teaching me things. So I feel like I'm learning something and getting something out of the friendship, in terms of like, you're teaching me about bands that I never heard of, or Tim's teaching me about philosophers I've never heard of, or whatever. All you guys have a lifetime experience that's different than mine, because you're 10 years removed. And so you feed me in ways that I could not get fed by anybody else. But my close friends do that too, but just different stuff, It's not, they're a little out of touch at this point. But not all of them. They're more in touch than most people our age, but they're still not like you guys. They don't have their finger on the pulse of it,
Right.
And all of my friends have or had artistic inclinations, mostly writers, some musicians. And I'm talking about my friends my age. But none of them really pursued it. There's one guy who plays at a local bar once a week with some buddies, but he always wanted to pursue it. He's a really gifted musician, but he didn't do more than that. Plays open mics, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And one guy is a great writer. Actually, two guys are fantastic writers, but never really pursued it. They both still write though, which is interesting. So, and then I had one novel, and then I fell off the face of the earth, except for a few short stories. So none of us is in the middle of it like you guys are, and it's inspiring to me to see people still doing it.
Yeah, and especially, I've had a few friends tell me, like, I can't believe you're still in music. I'm like, I don't know, it's just, for me, it's always been like it's not even, and I guess going back to why Wheeling, the secret too is, we didn't really have any ambitions outside of impressing our friends.
Yeah.
Or impressing the people around us, because I think at that point, like, there was other groups that were on our same age, but they were trying to make it, and we were like, we're not about making it.
You didn't trust that.
No,
you didn't trust it, and you didn't want any part of it, and you wanted to entertain each other, and everybody in the group was into the arts. So the way you got attention in that group was to be artistic.
Right. So and I think, especially like years later after Cap and Jazz broke up, and that's how people were talking about them like gods, even to this day. And I'm like thinking, like, those guys. I remember they were just working it out in the basement. But if you can give your 18-year-old self some advice right now, what would it be?
Oh God.
I got one.
Yeah, dude, you go first.
Save your damn money.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
And also believe in yourself.
Yeah. It's funny, the only thing I believed in myself about, I knew I was a good writer, but I didn't know if I was good enough. But I always knew I'd be a decent teacher. I just felt it in my bones from day one. Like from the age of 6, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So that was, at least I had something that I felt confident about, but there was no confidence really anywhere else, especially not with girls at the time. What would I tell my 18-year-old self now? Wow.
While you're thinking about that, what inspired you to be a teacher?
Well, my dad was a teacher. And my mom worked as a principal secretary in a school. So our whole family revolved around the school schedule. We were all off in the summer. We all had the same holidays off. We were all the weekends off. And that was just the way you lived. And when I grew up and I found out that some people work 50 weeks out of the year and they sit in the car in traffic with a tie on, and then they go to work somewhere for 8 hours, behind a computer or something, I'm like, I can't do that. And when I saw what my dad was doing, how much fun he was having doing it, and I thought, yeah, that's probably a good way to go, But like I said, by the time I was 6, I was my teacher, Mrs. Eggers, asked me to help another kid with some kind of assignment, and I did. And I remember going home that night and saying, that was kind of fun. I think I'd like to do more of that. And then for about 10 minutes, I just thought I wanted to be a radio disc jockey in high school. But other than that, I always knew I was going to be teaching English, and specifically writing. And part of that was because I wanted to have my summers off so I could write. Part of it was because I thought that if I couldn't write, at least I could teach writing, those who can't teach. So I don't know, it just made sense. And I never, like I said, except for that little blip in high school with the radio disc jockey thing, I always knew that's what I was going to do from day one. I don't know, what would I tell my 18-year-old self? I got to come back to that. That's a tough one. I guess don't be so afraid of abandonment.
Well, shit. Mark Maxwell, thank you so much for coming out and helping me make this gumbo for National Gumbo Day. I do want to leave you with this story that I tell people about one of the last times I saw you. And it was at our friend Tim Kinsella's art show, the Joan of Arc 20th anniversary show, and you were there. I hadn't seen you in a very long time. And at one point, as you were about to leave, and you gave each other a hug, and you're like, so good to see you. You were always one of my favorite students. And it's getting to me now, but I've always carried that since.
I'm so glad to hear that, and you were one of my favorite students. Always, I'll never forget you. I've taught thousands of students at this point.
Well, I figured that. I'm like.
But there are a handful, maybe 15 kids who were just emblazoned on my brain. You're one of them. You're not a kid anymore, though. But.
I still, even at 48, I still feel like.
And isn't it funny, like as a teacher, you tell somebody that, you don't really think anything of it, right? Of course you're one of my favorite students. What did you think, And then they're like touched by it in a way that you wouldn't expect. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. So
I'm glad you remember that.
And I'm glad that, we're back in each other's life. Like I think when we saw each other the last time over the summer, it was like, okay.
Yeah.
Because I think after I saw you that first time and I was trying to find you and I could not find any, because you're not out yet.
Yeah.
Which is probably the best, right?
Yeah.
But this time I was like, I got to find a way to get his number. And I got it from Tim. So.
I'm glad you did. did.
But come here.
I'm so glad. This is great. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. I love you, brother.
I love you too. All right. As we go along with Angel, good night.
Thanks for watching as we go along with Angel, and thanks for coming into my world for a little bit. Now it's time to head back to yours. Until next time, we'll meet again.